Okay. We're 6 o'clock, right?
We're 6:01.
We're not on time. All right. We have everybody we need to have. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and call to order an open session at 6:01. So 3.2 is report of action taken in closed session. So in closed session, the board approved the readmittance of a student who had been expelled, conditional on the completion of his, Aaron, help me, the
Restorative conference.
that's right, his restorative conference, which we'd like to be complete before the start of the school year. And then if he completes a successful 5th grade year, we have approved that his record from the incident would be expunged on the student. Is that correct, Aaron? Did I get it all?
You did, thank you.
So that is a report out of an action taken in closed session. And then, so we start off with roll call. President Elkiston here. Clerk Reed.
Here.
Trustee Lopez Jones.
Here.
Trustee Maxfield.
Here.
And Trustee Galindo.
Here.
Awesome. Great. And we'll go to Paula in her professional screen sharing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Unmute for the Pledge of Allegiance. Great. Okay, so ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America.
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible, with
liberty and
liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So our next point of business is 3.5. Have there been any changes on the agenda tonight? No changes? Aaron, you're muted, but
There are changes.
Oh, there are. Okay.
Yes, there are additions to the personnel register. And then there were also revisions to the classified salary schedule. It was revised to include the data and assessment support specialist position.
Oh, right. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Awesome. So then, knowing those small changes, we just need a motion to go ahead and approve tonight's agenda and adopt it.
a move. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
You did, everybody? I didn't hear everybody.
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Just remember when you're eyeing to unmute yourself with the space bar. So hang on, gotta get the reading glasses here. All right. So 3.6 district mission statement. We are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. 4 is public comments. So 4.1, maybe I'll just ask first. Any public comments, Paula? Okay, so we'll just go past that. 5.2, the all exciting 2021 complicated district budget. Post-COVID district budget. So I'm going to give it over to Maureen right now.
Actually, you need to open a public hearing, Julie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip that even with my glasses on? Oh, okay. So we are opening up the public hearing on the 2021 district budget at 6:05. So we, but does Maureen present a little bit before we have questions? Or is it just based on what we've
Yeah.
read in our packet?
She can present now if you'd like.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Okay, I think Paula's going to share my presentation to the board tonight. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well in this warmer weather. Been trying to stay out of the weather. It's too hot for me. Okay. Our Calistoga Joint Unified School District budget for 2021. I'll just do a little state update. On the next slide, Paula, we have a state update of our state adopted budget. The legislature did approve a budget today and has sent it to the governor's desk. So that happened, I think, around 4 o'clock this afternoon. So they will get paid. I'm sure they're happy about that. But the governor now has 72 hours to respond to their budget, and he can either line item veto the whole thing, or agree with what they've presented. So they're still in great talks about what they are going to agree upon through the whole state budget, which obviously is more than education, it's health services and all kinds of different things. But right now they do agree that STRS and PERS reductions for employer contributions will go down. We do have that as an assumption in our budget, which is great. We do get a little reprieve this year and next year, and then that third year out for us, it's quite a hike as far as what our percentage that is supposed to get paid out to districts until July of 2020. And then they've also agreed upon a $5.3 billion deferral in the middle of 2021, and they're not sure when that is going to get paid back in 21-22 to the districts. So that can hit other districts pretty hard. We're doing well with our cash flow, and we're going to talk about our reserves. So hopefully for our district, it's not going to affect us too bad. They also agree on the ADA hold harmless with a contingency plan for district learning. Something a little new that they're going to expect at the state legislature level is that if we do as districts have to have distance learning happening in the next school year, we're going to have to account for that reach out to students. So how are we connecting with students? What are we doing to connect? And what kind of, what progress are students making in distance learning? So it'll be interesting to see what the guidelines are for that. There's also an agreement to support education with federal funding, but as far as how the districts get the money, that's a big argument right now between the governor and the legislature. So we'll see how that turns out. And I think the legislature, by the budget they sent to the governor for approval, they want to preserve funding for school districts. They know what school districts are going through right now with COVID. They know that the economy is not good, and they want school districts to get back in business because they feel that the state will then get back in business. So I think the legislature has a really good backing as far as wanting to support school districts and not have that 10% cut happen that the governor suggested in the May revision. So we'll see how that all plays out probably in the next couple weeks, and I will keep you updated as we go along. So now on to our specific district budget. In our LCFF revenue assumptions, we are going to see a property tax increase of about $588,000. I'm sorry, that's everything. Property tax revenue is going to increase about $626,000. EPA is going to remain the same at $200 per ADA. That's some of our state funding. So I talked about those deferrals a slide back. Some of that money we won't see because we won't see the cash until later on. That's part of the deferrals we won't see. Special education property taxes increasing by about $12,000. And then we are scheduled for about a $50,000, almost $51,000 deficit due to the 10% reduction that the governor had in his May revision. So overall, our 8,000s our property tax revenue is increasing by about $588,000. Federal revenue assumptions, we are decreasing our federal revenues in our budget by about $135,000. We have now spent all of our Title I and Title II deferred revenue. Remember, we had some money that we were carrying over from year to year in our federal funding till we got our program going, the intervention program going at the elementary school. That money has now all been spent. Title I allocations decreased by about $11,000, along with Title III decreasing by about $4,000. These are very estimated figures for federal funding right now. Federal government has not released 2021 funding for any of these entitlements, but we always take a little bit of a hit. So I put in, I think, a 10% reduction in those areas. Special education federal funding is going to remain stagnant. It just changed a little bit. One-time federal funding that we do have in our budget for 2021 is we're going to receive about $93,000 as part of the CARES Act. And that did follow along the same lines as our Title I funding. So that is in our budget for 2021, and we've already got a lot of that actually budgeted out. We're using that money for custodial time. We know we're going to be doing a lot of extra cleaning with the COVID guidelines. All of our PPE equipment that we have to have available, we will be using this money to purchase that, along with cleaning supplies and any other COVID-related expenses to get school back in session. MAW funding, we received about $112,000 in MAW funding in 1920. That's one-time money. And so we do have that kind of just sitting out there right now. We do need to make some decisions on how we want to spend that money, but that is revenue we receive for, it's a federal funding that we receive for working with our special ed students and students that have IEPs. Our other state revenue is decreasing by about $333,000, and most of that is just one-time funding that we received in 1920 that we're not going to be receiving next year. Of that one-time funding, we have our special ed preschool grants. We received about $72,000. That was a one-time only. We may see a little bit of a grant depending on how the whole budget plays out. Depends on if they put any money towards grants for preschool next year or all towards just special education funding increases as a whole. Our CTIG, we have spent now, this CTIG money was from, I want to say 15-16. We had until December of this coming December to spend it. We have already spent all of that money. So this was a little bit of carryover in 1920 that we did end up spending on our CTIG program. And then we received this year about $241,000 of one-time funding in the wildfire property tax backfill. And so this was part of Napa County's payment to school districts as well as Sonoma County's payment to school districts. So again, one-time funding for 1920 that we won't see again. And then we have received this year state COVID relief. Right away when COVID happened, the state did get together and decided to do an allocation to districts as quickly as possible to help with expenditures related to COVID, and that's about $14.5, and so that's a one-time expense for 1920. Our local revenue assumptions, we are decreasing local revenue by about $305,000, almost $305,000. We had one-time revenues that we received in 1920, the Robert Johnston donation, and that was about $143,000. Mr. Johnson made it very clear that he wanted so much money to go to scholarships at our junior senior high school. He wanted so much money to go to the elementary school, and then he wanted so much money to go to the district as a whole. So we haven't, other than the scholarships, those are obviously going to scholarships. The elementary school and the district have not yet decided what to do with those funds. That is something that the elementary school gets to decide going forward what they want to do. It's about $47,000 almost, and then same with the district office. We haven't really decided how those are going to be dispersed yet either. Hopefully that's something we can work on in the near future. Local grants and scholarships decreased by about $144,000. I don't normally put in any kind of local funding or grants or scholarships until we actually see the money. So it's kind of a year-by-year thing. I reduce all the grants and scholarships and then increase them as we get the money flowing in the next year. Contributions. We make about, for 2021, we're going to be making almost $2.5 million in contributions to other programs. One is special ed. If you see that contribution is actually going down a little bit for 2021. That's a good thing. I don't know that it'll stay there for the whole year, but starting off the year, we are going to see a decrease. And we're seeing that decrease because we have actually ended outside contracts with McGrew, and we have hired our own aides to help in the classroom for special ed. So that has saved us a little bit of money. And then we've had some people retire, and we have lower salaries coming in. Usually people retire at a higher salary, and then we hire people at a lower salary. So that makes up for a little bit of that difference as well. Title I, I talked about the fact that we've used up all of our carryover now. And so now the district is going to be contributing about $31,000 to Title I to have that intervention teacher at the elementary school. Routine restricted maintenance. we have over the last year decreased the amount of summer projects that we're doing, just in the cost to try and save a little bit of money, knowing that we're coming into a couple years of having to be a little tighter with our budget. We've also taken out all the one-time expenditures in 1920 going into 2021, so that saved us a little bit of money. And then outdoor education, we normally spend about $80,000 in outdoor education. That's our Yosemite trip and our Nature Bridge trip. And we have a credit with Nature Bridges right now because we did pay to go on the Nature Bridge trip this year, and we didn't go. So they're allowing us to carry that forward. So we'll save about $15,000 in contribution next year. But again, we've already paid for that in this year. That's our contributions. Projected expenditures going forward. In the 2021 budget, we have increased certificated salaries by about $120,000. That increase includes all of the step and column costs for our staff, our certificated staff. It also includes staffing changes if we've had retirements and if we've budgeted for someone coming in lower, like I talked about in special ed. We've had a lot of movement this year where we've had one teacher take a position somewhere else and it's opened up another position. All of those things are already in the budget and moving along for 2021. We're going to talk about this a few slides down, but we do have some positions that are in our multi-year assumptions that we have really wanted to fund, and I wasn't sure how the budget was going to look going into 2021, so we originally put these positions into our assumptions for not 2021 but 21-22. I think we're going to be able to move those positions into 2021 year, and we will be able to hire a 1.0 4th through 6th grade intervention teacher. We will be hiring a 0.5 FTE behaviorist and another 1.0 FTE Spanish. It's actually an elementary Spanish teacher. So that's good news. I think with how we've gotten some other savings, we're going to be able to fund those positions a little earlier than in the out years. And then our classified salaries increased by $197,000, and that does include step and column costs. It also includes any staffing changes. We had a couple of big retirements this year from long-standing people in the district that will be, obviously, their salaries are more expensive than somebody coming in to replace them. And we have some new positions in our classified staff as well. We have special ed aides. Again, we talked about McGrew not being part of our outside contracts anymore. We've hired 2 new special ed aid positions to take the place of that contract for the 2021 year, along with other hires that we've done in the past. We also have a data and assessment support specialist in the budget for 2021. This is going to help with all that data collection we have out there and all the need that we have for being able to truly assess the data that we are collecting on all of our students now. They'll also help with CalPADS and Aries, and this position's, I think, long needed for Calistoga. Currently, we have about 6 people that are doing this work, and it'll be really nice to have it centralized and just to be able to go to one person and know how you can get data information from the data that's being kept. And then we have a new custodial position, mostly we have so many more requirements now for COVID, and so we are going to need extra custodial help in order to meet those requirements and guidelines. We don't see COVID probably going away anytime soon, so we do have a full-time custodial position in the budget currently. Projected expenditures in our benefit changes. I just listed the STRS and PERS changes for the next couple of years, so you can see those are some good savings. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for those couple of years that we are saving in STRS and PERS and having to have that reduced contribution. Again, the 3rd year out, it does go up, so we want to prepare for that as well, and we'll talk about that. Our workers' comp went from 1.922 in 1920 down to 1.75. That's a good thing. That means we're doing well with our employees. People aren't getting hurt on the job as much, and that helps our rate, so we want to keep seeing that go down. And then employee benefits, I just listed all of those out so you can see now that certificated staff cost us about 19.4% in benefits of every dollar of payroll, and classified is up to 30.15%. Our Our projected expenditures for supplies and materials reduced by about 42,000 from 1920. That's because we take out one-time purchases. They leave the budget for the current year. And then we have a textbook adoption for 6 through 8 in science we're going to be doing next year, along with some SDC math textbooks. And we also have a budget for teacher laptop replacement and Chromebook replacements. Teacher laptops were actually scheduled to replace about 7 or 8 laptops this year, and then we will all the teachers will have laptops within 3 years of being new. So that's something great. We want to keep up that replacement if we can going forward as well. Services and operating expenditures have been reduced by about $277,000. Again, this has a lot to do with not having that outside McGrew contract. All of the one-time services for 1920 have been removed. A lot of that had to do with maintenance. 5% increase in utilities we put into the budget. We do have an increase in our property and liability insurance, an increase by about $5,000 this year. Much better than last year. I think last year it was about $35,000. Again, I talked about the outside contract decreases in special education. And then I go through the budget and reduce in other areas where I can find savings. A good example of this is probably legal fees. So if in this year we have, we've budgeted a certain amount of dollars in legal fees and we've only spent 70% of that, and I go back and I see that we've only been spending 70% of that allocation, I will reduce that budget and see if we can make it through the year on the reduced budget. So I've done that in various areas in our 5,000s, which has reduced our overall expenditures there by $277,000. These are our transfers out, money from our general fund that go out to support other funds in our district. Right now in 1920, we see a cafeteria transfer of about $350,000. That's a little higher this year because of COVID and because of how hard those cafeteria workers have been working. The cost is greater to us, and until we get that money back from the feds, we do have to contribute to pay our employees to work. And we're hoping that that can go down to $300,000 next year. And then Fund 40, we have a $150,000 capital outlay contribution in both years. So special education, I always like to talk about special education a little bit because it is one of our biggest expenditures in our budget. And although we have our contribution going down for next year, I don't see that that's staying that way for the rest of 2021. But we have a total budget of $2.4 million. We only get about $719,000 in state and federal revenue for special ed. And the rest of that comes from the rest of the $1.7 million comes from our general fund to fund special education for our students. Our expenditures did decrease in 2021, and we've kind of talked about that already. Decreased outside contract with McGrew. We've hired paras in-house. That saved us a little bit of money. We've had some retirements and some position movements, and that has also saved us some money. But this is not the norm for special ed. Our numbers are increasing, and I expect to see this resource also increasing in expenditures for the year. We haven't really gotten final numbers from NCOE in the preschool program yet, so I am assuming that we'll see some increase in expenditures there as well. Multi-year projection assumptions. These staffing additions are what I talked about that I think we can move into the 2021 year. I have them in our multi-year projections coming in 21-22. So we're going to move those forward, and then when you have the first interim report, I will show you the difference, and you will see them in 2021 and then not in our multi-year projections. We have step and column are calculated for all of our staff in our multi-year projections. We have a huge change to SERS and PERS in 22-23 that's going to cost the district well over a couple $100,000. We've also budgeted for a K-5 textbook, science textbook adoption, and then also a K-12 social studies textbook adoption. So when you look at our multi-year projections, you'll see in our 4,000s our supplies that takes a big giant leap next year because we have those adoptions planned. We've increased utilities in the out years, and we've also increased supplies and services according to the CPI index. This is a look at our multi-year projection ending fund balances. And I do this every year with the board. This is something that we do also legally have to report according to AB 1200 rules. But our general fund balance we always have an $8,000 balance for our revolving cash fund, so that you will always see that. Our restricted balances are things like federal funding, Title I, or any state categoricals that are restricted in how we can spend that money. And so you'll see that that does go down. We are spending that down a little bit each year. And then we have a general fund balance reserve for assignments. Those are things like I talked about the STRS and PERS contribution. We want to make sure we can make those payments a couple years out. So we want to make sure we put money aside to make those payments. So we'll talk about that on the next slide in a little bit more detail. But overall, we have about $1.2 million in assigned reserves. And then the state mandated designation for economic uncertainty is the 4% that we are required to hold in our reserve as a minimum. And of course, you can see just by being a small district, that's probably not enough because our payroll once a month is over $1 million. So if we had the state minimum, we would not even be able to make a payroll for our staff. And especially in times when we're talking about deferrals and not getting funded by the state. And then we have an unassigned, unappropriated amount. That means that this money is in our reserve, but it has not been assigned to anything yet. And then you can see our percentages at the bottom. 1920, we're expected at 21.07% reserve balance. You see 2021 and 21-22, that goes up to over 28%, and then back down to 23 and 22-23. This is deliberate. This is very important because we're going to see 0 increases in revenue for the next couple of years, and we want to make sure that we hold our reserves very strong and very high so that we can get through the next couple of years at 0 increases in revenue. Next slide, Paula. So this is a little more detail of our ending fund balance. We talked about the restricted fund balances, things like categoricals and federal funding. Also, routine maintenance is in there. We talked about the $8,000 in revolving cash fund, and then this is the rest of this is the breakdown of the 1.2 million. So we're putting aside 300,000 for future STRS and PERS increases. We were at 200,000 in the past, but I wanted to up that to another 100,000 because of that third year out. We have about 60,000 in maintenance emergencies for the year. We want to reserve about 134,000 for future technology infrastructure upgrades and replacements. That's if major servers break and things like that. We need to do some work. We have that available. About 207,000 is in lottery funds, and that's for future site allocations to make sure that our sites still get their allocations for the supplies and services they need to purchase. And then we have about almost $400,000 in one-time funds. We talked about MON, special ed preschool. I also put COVID savings in that for future years. But those are one-time funds. They're not continual funds to spend. And we want to keep those in the reserve as one-time funds and call them out because we don't want to think that they're ongoing funding. And then there's about $50,000 for transportation maintenance costs in 2021. That was because when the budget was being developed, we weren't sure what we were going to do for maintenance on our school buses and our vans for next year. So I did just find out today that Napa Valley Unified has agreed to take over our maintenance costs for 1 more year at least. So hopefully that will not cost us as much as I put aside in that $50,000. And then last but not least, we have about $75,000 in unplanned COVID expenses. We don't know what's going to happen with distance learning. We don't know what's going to happen with how we're going to look in the fall. So I just want to make sure we have not only the federal backup, but our own backup as well in case we do see some expenditures that come our way due to COVID. So why such an increase to the reserves? You saw that 28% in the next couple of years. These are the top are the things that we have done to get to that 28%. So because we only really went to school for 2/3 of the year, there were a lot of expenditures that we didn't have to follow through the whole school year with. So I kind of went through and captured those expenditures. That puts an increase into the ending fund balance because we don't have those any longer in our budget. They kind of just fall to the bottom line. I was able to move a lot of expenses from unrestricted areas to lottery. And so that saved almost $90,000 in general fund unrestricted expenditures this year because we can now use lottery to fund those expenses. And water is sitting on about a $200,000 carryover, so we can handle that. We have federal aid in the budget of about $93,000. That helped immensely getting through the 2021 school year. And then again, STRS and PERS reduction, that's a couple $100,000 in savings for our district going forward. I'm pleased that that is part of the budget adoption and that everybody agrees on that. And then again, the decrease in our outside contracts contributed a lot to our reserve went up. And then also we went through, and because we took a 10% reduction on our state funding, we did reduce in departments by that 10%. If the budget comes back and they don't have a 10% reduction, then by all means, I want to be able to go back and give that money back to the departments that we reduced. But the reason we need to increase, it's absolutely necessary for our district to sustain services over the next 2 years and beyond. Remember, I keep saying we're going to have zero, but we're going to have zero income in the next 2 years. If we don't and we get more than that, that's great. But I feel very prepared if we do see zero income by being able to do what we've done with the reserves and increase them for the next couple of years. If you notice that drop from 28 to 23% from 21, 22 to 22, 23, imagine that for another year. If we had to live on that for another year, we would drop our reserve down to below 18%. So we really do want to make sure we have our reserves in place the next couple of years, and they help with cash flow. It helps us not have to go out and get a trans and pay interest on a trans. So it's really important. The higher our reserve, the better cash flow we have, the easier it is to make payroll, the easier it is to get to November and April, when that's about the only time we do see huge cash flows coming through our district. And then of course, the increase in reserves in the next couple of years will keep cuts away from staffing and programs. These are the other fund balances. We have 5 other funds within our district besides the general fund. And these are the ending fund balances of all of the other funds. Child nutrition services, we need to keep a balance in there because we have so many expenditures over the summertime. That helps us with cash flow there. Bond fund, we're gonna have about $600,000 left after we do the bathrooms and the expenditure for the master plan this year. Our developer fees fund 25, we're looking at about $180,000. We are spending about $86,000 a year in the developers fee fund, paying off that cost, and we have about 3 more years to go. So hopefully that fund will increase a little bit when that gets paid off. And we have a state fund, facilities fund 35, $429,000. I'm hoping to move that up to our bond fund by the end of the year because that is all bond money. The state kind of reimbursed us for the modernization we did at the elementary school a few years back. And then our capital outlay fund has about $782,000 in it. So our next step, the district adopts hopefully the 2021 budget tonight. The state budget adoption has come through. There will definitely be trailer bills. And then I will bring 45-day updates to the board as soon as we know how the state adopted their budget. Does the board have any questions for me?
Yes, I do. If anybody else wants to go first. Okay, hold on. When you switch off it, give me 1 second. All right. So my first question is, what routine maintenance was cut?
So every year we build, Chris and I get together and we build a budget for all of the summer projects and all of the things that are going to happen outside of the school year. And this year we prioritized everything. So we did a safety priority, a priority number 1, a priority number 2. I think we went to 3 or 4, Chris. I can't remember. 4. And so in looking at all those priorities, we actually funded the safety ones and priority 1s and priority 2s. And we held back on the 3s and 4s.
Can you just give me a general description of what a 3 or 4 might be?
Painting the lockers. I know that's
Okay.
something that's out there.
All right. That's
Not
reasonable.
a safety item by any means. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe a little deodorizer might help.
that might help.
Yes. And so did I hear correctly? It was a reduction in all departments by 10%?
Yes. So all departments, meaning maintenance, which you saw and we just talked about, and then each of the sites get a discretionary amount of money, and so we decreased that by 10%. And I decreased anywhere in the district budget that I could, probably by more than 10%. Again, contracts or memberships or things like that, that I know that we weren't going to do going forward, those were decreased.
All educational expenses decreased 10%.
No, because we have things like district software that we purchase on a yearly basis. I can't decrease those because we're going to keep those. It's curriculum. More discretionary things like, you know, extra basketballs at PE or extra pens and papers in the classroom, those types of things.
Okay. And wage cuts 10%?
No.
Just kids.
No, not kids.
Just kids.
Not kids.
Kids play with
Supplies.
basketballs.
Supplies.
I'm just being clear. Okay. And I didn't see any expenditures for the civil rights complaint. Is that in there somewhere? And may I get that report, please?
When we get the report, we will bring it before the board. We haven't gotten the report yet.
You were just made aware of the complaints? You haven't read them?
There weren't any complaints. It's just a verbiage that we have to put on anything we publicize. And we didn't have it on a couple of documents that we had sent out. That's all it is. There was no civil rights complaints by anybody. It was just a matter of language that we have to make sure is on anything that we publish.
Okay. So you described it as a civil rights demerit, or how did you describe it?
It's a civil rights guideline or a civil rights regulation, I guess.
Okay. All righty. Yeah, please, when you get it, please forward it to me. Thank you. Or the board.
Great. Anybody else? Indira? No? Jeff?
Julie, I want to clarify for the board on something in the report. When Maureen mentioned the Spanish language teacher for the elementary school, that would be for implementation in the 21-22 school year. And the other positions are for this coming school year.
And Maureen, if I may add, great job on the report. It was very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot of work right now with so many unknowns, so I appreciate the diligence too. So good job. Anybody else? Anybody else? And we have no comments from the public, correct, Paula? Questions by anybody else on the Zoom? Okay, then if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:30. And that takes us into presentations, and we will hear first from Up Valley Family Center on the 1920 services review. And I'll go ahead and throw the floor over to Jenny.
Great. Thank you all for having Zach and I here this evening. I think Paula's going to be sharing a PowerPoint for us. Great. So I'm Jenny Ocone. I'm the executive director with the Up Valley Family Centers, and we wanted to provide an update on the past year to the school board. Thank you all for the support that you provide in allowing us to partner and make services available to students and families in the district. Next slide. Some of you may be aware that we had our 20-year anniversary this past year. And it was 20 years ago that a group of Calistoga residents and the school district partnered together and received a Healthy Start grant from the state of California, which without that grant, I don't know if we would be here today. That was the seed that got us going. And so I just want the school board to know that the partnership of the district really has made so much happen over 20 years. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you'll have it, I'm assuming, in your packet. And so next slide. So just to provide a bit of context, the Up Valley Family Centers has 4 main program areas. The majority of what we're going to discuss, Zach's going to cover today, focused on our education, our children, youth, and schools program. but we also have programs in the area of economic success, family and senior services, and community engagement. And the strategies that we employ are all about increasing access to resources in Calistoga, making it easier for students and families to get what they need to be successful. We work with partners to advance our goals. We support people in times of crisis, including the one that we're facing right now with COVID-19. And we build capacity for leadership across generations. So next slide. So I just want to let everybody know a quick update on the COVID-19 response. Zach will talk a little bit more about what's been happening, how we've been partnering with the district on reaching students, but as the local family resource center with offices on the elementary and high school campuses, we've become known in the community as a time when people are facing challenges. And this is one of those moments. As early as March, we had people reaching out to us for assistance. While we have not been open physically in our offices, we have all of our staff have been working remotely since mid-March through now, providing services over the phone and via email, doing everything that we can to connect people to mental health resources, legal resources. We've been doing some events in the community in terms of distributions. Our staff have been present at the recent testing for the COVID-19 site at the Calistoga Fairgrounds. We've been making well check calls, helping people apply for benefits and resources that they have access to, including unemployment. And in addition, we've received generous support from various funders that has allowed us to provide direct financial assistance to help people who don't qualify for different resources available through the government, to be able to pay for their rent, to be able to pay for utilities. 329 households have been assisted to date. We've received, I think it's 770 different inquiries for assistance, and we are in the process of working through a number of those cases. 451 households are have appointments with case managers, and we're working to help them. We have never quite experienced a surge like this. The fires came close, but this has been a continued effort among our staff, and in particular, reaching families with students in the district. We've also distributed a number of grocery gift cards to 302 households. Next slide. So just briefly on the programs that we won't be going into too much detail on, our Economic Success Program, Family and Senior Wellness and Community Engagement. These are some of the highlights over the past year. We have staff who are have been trained to provide financial coaching. We've been providing, as we do every year, tax returns and helping people file those with no fees. Last year, we processed 705 tax returns, and we're in the middle of tax season now. Tax season's been extended, so we're continuing to offer that service. We have been providing parenting education services to local families. During the PSPS power outages, we assisted people at that time with grocery gift cards, and we were preparing to do the same as we enter that season once again. And then in our community engagement realm, we've been working hard on getting the word out about the census, which is happening now, and trying to encourage every single person to be counted. And we're also continuing to offer immigration services. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Zach, and next slide.
Everybody. So I'm going to jump into school-based services and kind of go over all of the programs that we do with students and adults in the community. This first slide here is talking really about early childhood support. So what we try and do is help kids and their families from birth all the way through after high school and beyond, and really That all starts with our Niños Activos playgroups. So this year, we had 79 parents in that playgroup over the year and 81 children, and those kids are between the ages of 0 and 5. And the goal there is to really provide some early literacy work for the families, get them some social interactions, and provide them resources like books and things that they can take home with their family and read with their kids. In terms of parent education, we partner with Napa Valley College and the Napa Valley Adult School and provide ESL classes. So we had 4 weekly offerings of ESL this year in Calistoga, 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. And the 2 evening classes were hosted at Calistoga Elementary School. And we had 105 students between all of those classes this year. We also host a Spanish literacy class, which helps students who are maybe not quite ready for an English class because they don't have the base language skills that they need in Spanish. We had 5 students this year in that program. And then we also started in the fall a Spanish GED program. So we worked with the adult school and have been advocating for that program for a long time and finally got that up here. And we had 10 students take advantage of that before the shelter-in-place order happened. Next slide. So in the schools at the junior senior high, we have our Claro and Clara youth mentoring programs. We had lots of kids this year in the fall before the shelter-in-place order happened. So between the girls, we had 56 girls total across 5 different groups, or 4 groups, sorry, 4 groups. We had a high school group, and we split those up between freshmen and sophomores and juniors and seniors. We just had so many girls in both of those grades, and developmentally they're in a lot of different places in their life, so we decided to split that up. And then we also have at the high school an all Spanish girls group, and there are about 10 students in that. And then you'll see individual mentoring. So that was something that we started last year that we really carried over this year. And the goal of the mentoring is to really give extra supports to those students who need it. So academic, social, emotional, connecting them to outside resources. And we had 4 girls that we were checking in with on a weekly basis. With the boys, we also had several groups and several kids. We had 54 boys. And the one exciting thing this year is we started a Spanish-speaking boys group, which we've never had before. We had enough kids that wanted to take advantage of that. And so Jose, our facilitator, started one of those groups. And that group actually sustained at 100% attendance all the way through COVID-19 and the shelter-in-place order right now as well. And we have seven individual mentoring students in that. And we just wanted to share a quote here. We do a pre and post survey with our kids. And one of the quotes from the students that came back is, "I love this program, I can actually be myself." And the goal of this program is to really provide that social emotional support and to help kids understand through the lens of culture how they can succeed in school and then succeed as they move on in their lives. Next slide, please. So along with students with our Clara and Clara program, we do have a parent component as well. So we had one parent presentation this year where we brought in Mentis and we talked about reducing stigma around mental health with parents. We provided dinner, encouraged socialization, kind of helped the parents model how to talk with their students. And some of the quotes that we have from parents are, my children have a safe place to talk to someone when I'm not around. Another parent said that their daughter gets motivation to achieve what she hopes for, and she gets help if she has problems. And then the last parent that we wanted to share said that they like the way mentors communicate with the teens because it's difficult at times with many topics they don't trust parents. And so that's really the goal, is that our facilitators are those trusted messengers on the campus where kids can really come and get the help that they need and feel safe. If you've ever been on the high school campus during lunch or break time, you'll see that our office is always full of kids coming in and out. And they just really enjoy spending time with our facilitators. And our facilitators really enjoy those connections with the kids and really work to keep them moving forward. Next slide, please. So another program that we run up here that I think you're all aware of is the Youth Diversion Program. So we partner with Calistoga Police Department to work with students who have come into contact with law enforcement for some sort of misdemeanor or nominal offense. We had 20 cases this year, 14 are still currently active. 6 students have successfully completed their program. And the incidents varied from vandalism, petty theft, battering a person, marijuana, vaping. And what we try and do with all those cases is we individually tailor their contracts to meet the needs of the case. So we'll provide them with healthy relationships counseling if it's a sexual assault case, or mental health services. prevention and treatment programs for substance abuse, if that's the case. And each of these contracts have about 40 hours of community service as well, and we try and partner the kids with meaningful community service activities around the community. Next slide, please. So mental health, we came and presented to you all last year around counseling services in the district, and we talked a lot about the wait list and the need to reduce that wait list. And I'm happy to report that we substantially reduced that wait list this year. So I provided a side-by-side comparison for last year and this year, but we saw slightly more students. Kind of the big highlights are we saw slightly more students, and we reduced our wait list by over half at both the junior, senior high and the elementary school. A lot of that was we streamlined our services, our process at the beginning with the core team. We got the paperwork taken care of up front. We were able to attach students to therapists quicker. And we also partnered with Aldea Behavioral Health Services and connected about 4 students that have Medi-Cal directly with them rather than having them wait on a wait list to see Mentis. But really pleased with the results from this year. It was a great collaboration with the administrators at both of the schools to really make this work. And I will report that during the shelter at home order, we still had 33 students that were actively receiving services through telehealth. We did have several students that decided they wanted to decline over that period because they couldn't maybe find a safe place to talk by themselves, or they didn't have access to you know, a quiet room or somewhere private, but every student that wanted services was able to be attached to services over the shelter-in-place order, and some of them will be continuing over the summer based on what those students require. Next slide, please. We did partner with the district on restorative practices this year. Last year, we were focused just at the elementary school, and this year, since it moved to the junior, senior high school, we partnered with Principal Guerrero as well. So at the elementary school, we had 2 different groups. They were 5th and 6th grade boys. We had 11 students total, and we ran groups weekly for about 6 weeks right before the shelter-in-place order happened. And then at the high school and the junior, senior high school, we worked with Raul, and we partnered with him, and we had 19 boys in a restorative group that Raul and Monica and Michelle had kind of picked to put together for a group. That group, we tried to meet over the shelter in place, and I think a few students showed up, but it was a lot harder to get that continuity going, and that group started pretty close to the beginning of this second semester, right before all of this took place. Next slide, please. So Jenny mentioned in our timeline that you'll be able to see if you go back, but our Community Schools Initiative has been around since 2015. And we've been rapidly expanding and ramping up services. A lot of the services that we've talked about are done in partnership with several other organizations that also work here in the district as part of this Community Schools Initiative. So some of the big highlights for the year is we had our 3 annual meetings. We actually hosted our first virtual meeting over Zoom last month. And I'm happy to say that we've had about 40+ people attending each of those meetings this year, which has been quite an increase since last year when I started. And there's just, it's really great to see all of the energy around this work. Our steering committee has also met twice this year, of which Aaron and the principals at the school, at both schools, are on. And we're working right now to create a sustainable path forward for this initiative. So much like Maureen was talking about with the budget concerns for the school district, all of our organizations across the county are feeling the pinch right now, and we're really trying to figure out ways to get creative to continue providing the level of service that we've been offering, but with less resources. And that oftentimes is going to mean we're going to be getting creative with our partnerships. But it's exciting because we have a lot of good positive momentum right now working that way. We did, as a part of this initiative, support the District Wellness Committee this year. So both myself and Regina Penna, who coordinates our Up Valley Partnership for Youth, which is our drug and alcohol prevention program that we run, attended each committee meeting this year. And then we also worked with the district at the beginning of the year to increase free and reduced lunch applications and CalFresh applications. And I believe we made a pretty significant impact in the increase in applications this year. So that was a really positive result of that collaboration this year. Our staff are attending every DLAC meeting. We're providing information about all the community resources that are available, all of the family resource services, and we also bring and provide translation devices for anyone who needs them during those meetings. part of our work with community schools is that we also are trying to facilitate and create smooth transitions for incoming kindergartners from preschool. And so we hosted 2 meetings this year where we met with all of the preschool directors and Nicole at the elementary school. And we have started developing systems to help facilitate clearer lines of communication between the preschools and the kindergarten teachers, and also the reverse, to get information about the kindergartners back to the preschool so they can modify and adapt their curriculum as needed. We met just last month with all the kindergarten teachers as well, and we put together a plan for the summer to try and reach incoming kinders, as well as provide parents access to information about how to transition and what to expect when school starts back up again, knowing that in July, August, we may have a different answer about what school's going to look like. But for right now, we're just really trying to, we ask the teachers to provide us, what are the 3 things that you would like your incoming kinder class to know, regardless of whether we're virtual, we're in person, or we're some hybrid of each. And right now, that group is working to get that information out to families. We also partnered with the district for PK this year and helped with the recruitment process and providing childcare. So Omaira Baptista, who is our now part-time community liaison, actually, she's kind of shifting hats. She and Rosa Cachu, who is our Niños Activos early childhood specialist, called every single family in the district and made sure that they all knew what was going on with PK and how to get involved. And we saw substantial attendance in that program. As well as the one day that we were able to provide childcare before the shelter at home hit, we had about 21 kids come to that childcare as well, so that allowed those parents to participate in the program. Lastly, one of the bigger highlights of the year is that back in November, I think several of you attended, we had a town hall meeting that we hosted with public health in the city, where we talked about inclusion and what it means to be included, and what are some things that the community would like to see changed, what are things that we can build upon that are real strengths in the community. That report is going to be published soon by Public Health. I say soon because they had to shift all of their resources to this COVID-19 response, but they were close to being done right before all of this hit. So I will share that out with everybody as that's available. But there is an artist's rendering of the conversation that night that has been made available. And I think it's the city is posting it up, or had posted it at the community center. So if anyone would like information about that, I'm happy to send it along. But it was a really great conversation. We had lots of students there. The picture in the bottom right is one of our students sharing out what they talked about at the table, and really just kind of the community listening for what felt like the first time for a lot of these kids. So that was great. Next slide, please. So Jenny mentioned what the Family Center as a whole has been doing during all of this COVID-19 shelter at home order, but for our education program in particular, we've been focused with working at the district on distributing internet hotspots. So we did pass out, I believe, over 90 hotspots over the summer to make sure families had internet. We've been helping with food assistance, mental health supports, as I mentioned, we're still going strong. Substance use prevention and treatment groups still ran. We actually partnered with Aldea to run a couple of groups. As many of you know, a student in St. Helena overdosed a couple months back. And so we wanted to make sure that our students were provided with resources around that, and that they were getting the care and the help that they needed. Emergency financial assistance, and bicycle helmets. We had CHP come up 2 weeks in a row. Actually, we passed out over 120 bike helmets to kids up here. And the impetus for that was really when we were passing out internet hotspots and talking with the ladies at the cafeteria. We noticed all the kids riding up without helmets. And so we figured we would help get some helmets out there for them so that they can be safe while they're out there. And that was a real positive event. And then again, Jenny mentioned Triple P. So during this shelter in place, what we did is we partnered with Cope Family Center. And so any family that needed Triple P services, while our case managers were busy dealing with emergency financial aid, we were able to connect them through the COAD, which is the County Organizations Active in Disaster, to get those specific Triple P services and help them out. There were a lot of parents that were struggling with creating routines and bedtime and just all kinds of things that come with, now I'm a parent and a teacher, and I've got to do it all with 3 kids in 3 different grades with 21 different teachers, and it was a lot for a lot of parents. So we were happy to be able to help with that. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, that was the last slide. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer any. But As Jenny said, thank you for your continued support. It's a great partnership. It's a real great collaboration. And I know I can speak for myself. It's been great working with the district this year and just making a lot of these things possible. So thank you for working with us.
We're so lucky to have you, not only with your initiatives, but so close on the campus. And I can see Erin is making it a priority to collaborate. So thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thank you, Zach and Jenny.
Well, thank you for making time, and thank you for all you're doing to continue keeping students and families healthy and safe. Good luck in the coming months.
Thank you, and thank you for your support of our community.
Yeah, I also just want to say, like, I'm so impressed, and not that we're comparing ourselves to others, but I've read many stories about other districts, and we just really mobilized and did an amazing job through this whole thing. And a lot of it has to do with your support too. So I'm proud. I was curious how the retrieval of the hot spots went today. But it was just really amazing to watch everybody mobilize and get stuff done. It was awesome.
Yeah, my hat's off to the Valley Center. You guys do a remarkable job. The amount of money you're giving to our community, that there's so much of it, our student body community, so much lives in poverty. To see them numbers, my heart goes out to you guys. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. Just to follow up on what Julie said, I got a lot of friends in the academic world that they are shocked to see how far ahead of the curve we are in regards to social services with you guys on campus. We just can't wait for the moment where it matriculates down to our academic performance. So thank you, Jenny and Zach, for the work that you guys do.
Okay, then we will go ahead and move forward. Obviously, Family Center, you don't have to stay. If you want to, you're more than welcome, but I'm sure you have other stuff to attend to. So we'll just go ahead and move on to 6.2, the facilities update. So Chris Ox, I'll give you the floor.
How's it going, everybody? It's Oaks, Julie.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Not the first time that's happened.
I have been saying it wrong all along. Thanks for the.
That's the first time I've ever heard you say that. I think
yeah.
usually you're on it. Don't worry. So, Paul, you can go to the first slide. Next one. So I'll just be discussing some of the projects we're going to get done this summer. Safety projects and site improvement projects. Also, I sat in on a webinar with PG&E and Napa County OES to discuss how things are going to look for us in the upcoming fire season. So I was going to give a little information on that. And then just to clarify on the projects, what I've listed is probably the most visible, notable projects to the staff and the students, but it's definitely not all the projects. It just was more streamlined to put some of the fancier projects in there. So you can go to the next one, Paul. So a couple of years ago, we redid the PD portable, and one of the things we didn't get to was on the riverbank side of it was a pretty dilapidated shed and some old wood decking. So this is one of the projects we've completed already. Everything has been removed and demoed, taken away. One thing that was a bit of a hang up when they did the modernization as part of the fire alarm, they were required to put fire devices in that shed. So we got some of it done, but then we had to wait for our fire contractor to come out and deactivate and reprogram our panel. So that was all done for the most part. The only thing we have left to do is to clean up that side of the building, patch some holes from where the shed mounted, and some flashing, and then we'll go ahead and paint that, and that'll complete that project. This one is pretty disappointing for me. Over in the, I believe it's a primary quad of CES, there was 5, now I think there's 4 left of they're kind of a small willow tree. We had one fall in a heavy windstorm, and recently came across an irrigation leak around that area. And when we were digging in to go after that leak, found that the particular tree by that leak, the root system is not a very deep root system, and all those roots are real brittle. So you can really just grab the root and break it off, even the big ones. So I had Pacific Anthony's arborist for Pacific Tree Care. He came out and evaluated it, and he's recommending the removal of all the trees there because they're all suffering from the same issue. One thing I haven't nailed down yet is what we're going to replace them with. I'd like something shady, and I'd like something colorful. So maybe like a sunset maple type plant. But I need to research what's going to hold up there. And then with the increased use in the high school science classrooms, we need to get some additional ventilation in their chemical room storage. And then the junior high has adopted some curriculum that's going to require a safety shower. So we need to get that in there. Throughout the district, some of the newer carpet seams are coming apart, and I'm not very happy with the particular carpet. So we are going to get those seams repaired. One thing in the future, though, any other modernizations, I think it'd be worth looking at other manufacturers and types of carpets. This is durable, but if the seams aren't going to hold up, then it doesn't do us a whole lot of good. And then with everything we've got going on, we were short on some hand sanitizers in classrooms and common areas. So our janitorial supplier provided us with dispensers, and I thought we were done with this project, but going into a couple classrooms, there's some changes we need to make. The dispensers aren't labeled very well, so we want to relabel them, and then we also want to change on a few so that they're all uniform. Next slide, please. All right, so these are some of the site improvements, not necessarily safety related. The big one is the junior high restroom renovation. That background there is the blueprint with the DSA. It's currently in DSA review right now. I expect to be able to move forward in the next week or two on getting the bidding squared away and then starting the project in July. We don't know exactly what the future holds for the how we're going to approach the start of the school year, but I'm still pushing the project like we're going to have students here on the first day of school. So we expect to complete that in early August. And then the next two are two projects that kind of go together. I should have switched the order, but both gyms are in need of floor refinishing. The small gym's in pretty bad shape. The large gym's not as bad, but still needs to be done. So as part of that, we're going to get, I want to have the floor repaired where we had some moisture damage over by that sleeve. They started on that today, pulled it out. The floor underneath looks good. There's not like any obvious signs of moisture intrusion, but there is a expansion joint in the concrete right there that's fairly big, so they're going to fill that in, and then they'll end up redoing all the floors in both gyms. And then the new softball scoreboard, we got that right as this kind of came down the COVID-19 situation. So it's sat in the shop for a little while, and we just had that installed last week. Turned out really good. I'm excited for the upcoming softball season. I'm really hoping we get to have that. Next is some classroom audio-visual upgrades, or audio-video upgrades that we're working with Marty in IT on. The tech committee is moving towards large screen TVs, and we have a total of 6 to do over the summer. We've got 1 done already, and the TVs are sitting in the shop right now. Next slide, please. So this one, one of the PG&E PSPS update. I was really happy with the information that came out of this webinar. PG&E has been extremely clear. They've been moving high voltage line isolation hubs, working on a solid season. I was able to confirm with them that the elementary school and high school is going to be in the event power shut off. One of the hubs that they installed by Crystal Geyser will support the Calistoga the high school in Palisades. Basically, the border of Calistoga is not covered. So on the south end, Foothill is kind of the boundary for there, and then around Lincoln and 29 or Silverado Trail and 29 where it heads off to Tubbs Lane was kind of the cutoff. The PG&E consulted with the local fire district and was determined that they didn't want power up in those high hazard areas. It was really interesting to see where their main lines run through, overlaid on a map of what's the high fire risk. A lot of their main lines run right through all that, and they've done a really good job of trying to isolate and make this upcoming season much easier on us, at least. Next slide. These next two is really more of a community information. This first one is regarding the community resource centers. They're going to be all up the valley, but Calistoga Fairgrounds is one of the locations in Calistoga. You can see there all the different things that they're planning on providing. And at the point of this meeting, there's still license negotiations. It sounded like it was going to move forward, but I'm not sure what's going on at the fairgrounds. So hopefully they'll give us an update and let us know where the Calistoga site's going to be. And then the next slide, if you could, Paula, is specific to customers in the area with medical needs. So this is all the information they need to contact PG&E and get on their list of higher needs customers. So the next slide, please, will be the last one. If anybody has any questions, that's the new scoreboard there. Just wanted to get, this got installed Friday, so I was able to sneak that picture in.
The score doesn't look right, Chris.
It's a little crooked, yeah.
So I might not know what's going on, but it is the generator that was being used last year that the schools were on, that's gone, right? And that's been replaced with what's out near.
Yeah, that was right there over by the trailhead on 29 where Lincoln and Silverado Trail meet. You know that area there? A little bit up from there is that power station. But this is a big hub that they put in. I'm not sure specifically where it is, but it's over off of Washington by the Crystal Geyser factory. So what they're going to do is they'll have backup generation that plugs into that, will power us up.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Chris? Great. You have a busy summer ahead of you, I see.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I think we're going to knock out a bunch.
Okay, Chris Oakes, nice presentation.
Thank you.
All right, so next 7 reports, 7.1, we'll start with Michael, Director of Educational Services and HR.
Got a short report for you this week, seeing as we just met, but I will say I'm looking forward to summer. There's a lot of important work to do, and it'll start off with launching our summer program. Big thanks to Joe Kreiner and Melinda Mendoza. They're working very well together and just putting all the things in place that need to happen before the first day of summer school. Also, thanks to Michelle Craig Morales. She's doing a nice job of making sure that all the students that are taking the high school credit recovery courses are enrolled in the correct courses in the correct order. And then also a shout out to Zach Guzik and the Family Center. They are helping us reach out to parents. I think I shared recently that we went out to parents and asked if they were interested in the summer program, and we had 90% of parents saying yes. But when it came time to get the enrollment papers in, we were well short of that. And so Zach has been very helpful in having his staff make calls to families and get those numbers up because we want to serve as many students as we can. And I agree with you, Julie. I think it's just amazing to have a partner in this work. And the Family Center is just fantastic in the way that they support us. Following the start of summer school, we're going to start the work to make some shifts to our healthcare plans and offerings. We'll be consolidating from 3 to 2 medical providers, which is fantastic news. We'll be adding 2 Blue Shield plans and a Kaiser plan. This will give us a high, medium, and low cost plan for both Kaiser and Blue Shield. And we're moving to CISC for dental. This will get us a slight cost savings but I think more importantly, it'll consolidate us from 3 to 2 providers. This is good for employees to simplify things and good for district operations and efficiencies. Vision will stay with Keenan. Their plan is so good and so low cost. I don't see us moving anywhere for Vision. So we'll be at 2 providers for our medical plans. And then we'll work the summer on just making the changes so that when staff return in August, they'll be ready to have those options for open enrollment. We'll also work with onboarding our new hires. I thought it was going to be a slow season for hiring, but we ended up hiring more folks than I thought we would. I will say I continue to be impressed by our new hires. I think tonight's personnel register is a great example. We have 3 exemplary special education paraprofessionals, and hiring paras has become very difficult in our region, and we just continue to attract and hire high quality candidates. So it's amazing, and it'll be exciting to see them start their work. Our students are ultimately the beneficiaries, so it'll be fun to see our new staff up and running next year and working with kids. And then beyond this, we've got a lot of important discussions to have this summer about how to reopen school and how to support staff with training and with tools for the work that will await us in August. And I don't anticipate things slowing down too much over the next couple months. I think it'll get a little quieter in the offices and on the email, but we've got a lot of very important work and exciting work and challenging work ahead. And that is my report for tonight.
I had a question, Michael. As you switched from educational services to human resources, it was hard for me to follow along. I'm not sure which one you're better at or which one you're better suited or better educated for, but I guess time will tell. My question in regards to educational services is, who comes up with the curriculum? Is that approved by you, by the principal, or the teachers just come up with their own curriculum? What is that process? And as far as summer schools, was all kids invited that needed more support? Or was it the same process as before?
Sure, I'll start with the summer school question. We've got a good process in place where we have a combination of using metrics and just making sure we look at data as to which students need support, and then also teacher recommendations. So we followed a pretty similar pattern to years past, but I think that format does capture the kids who are in need of support. And we also took calls from parents that said they just wanted their child to have extra support in the summer, and those students were added to the wait list. But I think ultimately we're going to be able to serve all the students that need summer school, and that's exciting. And I think now more than ever, kids are going to need the support. And I'm glad that we can do it, and I'm doubly glad that we can do it with all CJUSD teachers that know our program, and I think our kids will benefit.
So what is that? I'm sorry to interrupt. What is that process, Michael? Because I'm hearing from teachers that kids with the greatest needs, from teachers, staff with the greatest needs, are not getting invited to summer school.
Yeah, I don't know. Our process is this. At the elementary school, teacher teams make those recommendations, right? They make those recommendations based on student performance, on our assessments of their reading skills and their math skills. Typically, summer program is designed to support reading, language, and mathematics, right? So those really are the metrics we're looking at. But the recommendations come from teachers. And then at the secondary level, our high school students especially, those are just students that have one of 2 things: either students who have failed a class and they need to make up those credits, or students that have a D, which doesn't get them where they need to be for A to G completion and college preparedness. And those students have a chance to, even though they've passed the class, get a better grade in the class. So yeah, I don't know. That doesn't really jive, because we've taken pretty much those recommendations from teachers, and we're serving the students that we have room to serve students. So yeah, feel free to ping me offline about who those students are. We'll make sure that they're going to get served.
Thank you, Michael. I'll take advantage of that. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's exciting. I mean, it's exciting to see that we're doing summer school, and it's exciting that I think we won't have an issue serving kids that need to be served.
And the curriculum?
Yep. So I can talk through just kind of how that works. In general, the state sets the standards that students need to learn. So the things that students need to learn and master, those are set by the state. Publishers develop curriculum, and curriculum is then approved by the state, though that's only through K-8. The state doesn't necessarily produce a list of approved curriculum at the high school level, though we do see a lot of the same publishers who are getting their materials approved at the lower levels are also the same publishers for the secondary level. That is typically how that works. I can say for our teachers know that they teach the state standards. That's their charge. Primarily, they will use their core curriculum or adopted curriculum, which is board adopted. That's the primary curriculum, though we also know that teachers have the ability to supplement their curriculum with other materials, and they do have a level of academic freedom. That said, the primary goal is to teach the state standards. And then we know when there's tough topics or controversial topics, we also know that those should be taught in a balanced manner. We know that students should not be discriminated against for their opinions. And we know that students should be encouraged to respect different points of view. So those are some kind of guiding principles for us. And if there's ever a concern about curriculum, that needs to come to the teacher. And we always resolve issues at the lowest level. And after that, it goes to the principal. But in general, the state puts the standards out. The state approves curriculum. Teachers use that curriculum, though the teachers have some level of discretion to choose supplementary curriculum as well.
Very, very interesting, Michael. And I'm going to bring you offline on that same. I got another question I'd like to ask you later. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm always available. Please, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Anybody else questions on summer school? Is it our practice that if someone reached out and said they want their child to attend summer school, we would say A-okay?
Yeah, typically if there's someone who's not identified as a student who needs additional support, we would put them on a wait list. But at this point, my feeling is looking at the numbers, there's a great chance that all students will be able to be served that put their name forward. But typically we invite students who are in need of additional support.
Perfect. Thank you. Everybody's good on that? I can move forward to Maureen. So 7.2, Director of Business Services.
I also have a very short report tonight. It's been a very busy week getting ready for a board meeting back to back, 2 weeks in a row. So the only thing I want to let the board know is a couple months back, you approved a dark fiber network project. We need to, we went into contract with Sonic to do the line between the high school and the elementary school for internet connection. And so Sonic's going to be coming out to the sites. They want to visit both the elementary and the high school at the end of June to just evaluate what they are going to need equipment-wise and material-wise. And then they will start that project shortly after the beginning of July. So if you see Sonic trucks or whatnot on our campuses, that is why they're installing our dark network. And that's actually all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Okay, we're all good? Yeah? All right. So then we will roll forward to 7.3 and Erin's report. You're muted, my dear.
Thank you for the reminder. I'm sure that everybody feels that the end of the school year is always an exciting time for students, parents, staff, community members, but this is the first year that I was really feeling apprehension about how the promotion and graduation ceremonies would go given our current circumstances. And I could not have been more impressed with the efforts of our administrators and staff to make those celebrations truly memorable. The 6th grade promotion, I don't know if any of you got to see that, but the packet pickup was very energetic. Anytime I think that you give Mark Marita a microphone and some music, you know it's going to be entertaining. So he just did a wonderful job of recognizing every child as their family, and they came into the parking lot. And I do think at the end of the 4 hours, the neighbors were probably ready for the fun to end because you could hear the celebration throughout the entire neighborhood. And then the 8th grade drive-through promotion also was fantastic. The junior high staff had a ton of energy that evening. gave out little gifts to every student, and parents seemed to appreciate it, and kids were excited as well. And then the crowning event, of course, was the high school graduation at the end of the week, and that was far better than I expected as well. It took a monumental amount of planning, and I think it will certainly never be forgotten by either the graduates, parents, or staff. The only setback was losing our beautiful new Wildcats banner to a huge gust of wind, but it wasn't damaged. And so if you have a chance, it's actually hanging at the, unless it's been taken down, Chris, it was hanging at the school. Raul thought it was a good idea to put it up, and if kids wanted to come have their picture taken in front of it. So, but it was windy again this afternoon, so it may not be there. So throughout the week, Chris and his crew worked hard behind the scenes. They were part of the team that made all this happen. They had to prepare, clean up after each of the events. So although the pandemic has certainly presented all kinds of challenges to everyone, our alternative celebrations turned out really nice. And now that that is done, our school year is out, and the CDE has now published their guidelines for reopening school. So we are going to be jumping right into planning this week. I'm going to be establishing a task force which will consist of district level management, principals, teachers from both schools, and CSEA reps to create a plan for reopening based on that guidance document. And we also have the CDC guidance document and a guidance document from the county office. So we have several resources to use. And then we also have been surveying our parents, and we've got some feedback from staff as well, thanks to both of our associations. So we're going to consider all of that as we develop the plan. The Napa Valley superintendents have also all tentatively agreed that we are going to communicate our district plans to staff, parents, and communities in mid-July. We want to try to stay in sync with one another as much as possible. The only district that is doing something a little bit different is Pope Valley. And that's simply because Pope Valley is such a small community and a small school. And so they are electing to start school in July and are making some pretty major modifications to their calendar. So we've learned the past 3 months that things can change on a moment's notice, and we need to be flexible. So that is the plan for now. And then I want to let the board know that at the last meeting, you all were interested in attending the AEC in December. And so Paula immediately jumped on booking our reservations. And so we do have both the conference reservations done as well as our hotel rooms. So we're set to attend. So thank you to Paula for doing that. And thank you to the team members who are at this meeting right now, just for all of your help this past week. It was enormously appreciated. So thank you.
I know I already said it in the text, but the graduation ceremony was awesome, and I was so impressed. And Mrs. Baldenegro and Raul make an amazing team, super well organized. I think I had more fun than Lila. I thought it was so much fun.
I would like to add that I've been to a few graduations, and I enjoyed that one the most. I mean, I missed the speeches, but I had a great time. Hats off to Raul and the admin team.
And Mark, you are going to get to see the speeches. Fortunately, the final video is going to look very professional, and you'll get to see the speeches both by our students and then also by administration.
Thank you. Great. Okay.
Can I say, Julie, sorry. I just wanted to let the board know that CSBA has reached out to me. They are interested on working on an article for their membership magazine regarding our experience as a small district and, facing the pandemic and the reopening of the schools. What are our plans, and they wanna interview board members who will be willing to speak to them for this article that they wanna publish in the next, I think for the next month's edition of the magazine. So I wanna follow this. I'm gonna forward this request to you, Erin. And see anybody else is interested or speaking with them in regards to our experience. that will be, very, awesome if somebody wants to do it. But they are really interested from our perspective of a small district and how we experience. So I'll forward this to you.
Thank you.
You mean in that really sticky, shiny CSBA magazine?
Aaron, I had a question about, so when you say that all the superintendents or districts in the valley are going to roll out, so Napa unified as well? Or are
Yes.
they, okay. So, are you, I mean, obviously we're not like Napa Unified nor St. Helena. Have you considered that maybe we might want to go a different route, or does what they're rolling out? I mean, I've seen the email, I read it. It all seems pretty standard, but local control, do you feel comfortable with that? Because prior to the pandemic, we were for a moment the only school about to open up school, but then that changed real quickly. Is there any instances like that where we would vary from their decision?
Absolutely, and it's just the decision to announce, Mark. It's not the actual plan, because there's such a difference in our school sizes or district sizes, obviously. So their plan may have very different, specifics than ours does. But that's just what we were intending to announce, so that one district doesn't, move ahead of the other too quickly, and so that parents throughout the whole valley will have similar timelines for communication. But yeah, you're right. It could change, and that's what we have to be flexible, just depending on what happens with the pandemic and our own individual districts.
Great, thanks. Anybody else questions for Erin before we move on? Okay, then we'll move on to 8.1, the consent agenda. So just a reminder. Hang on. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless any board member, audience, staff requests specific items to be removed for separate action. So before we go ahead and approve the consent agenda, just want to make sure everybody's okay with all that's contained.
I would like to, to say that I'm recusing myself from voting on the consent agenda as my employer is in one of the routine contracts.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect. So if nobody else has any questions, we'll go ahead and just look for the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, roll call vote. So President Elkson, aye. Clerk Reed?
Aye.
Trustee Lopez Jones?
I'm recusing myself.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, my sweet. I'm sorry, exactly. Trustee Maxfield?
Aye.
And Trustee Galindo?
Aye.
I probably have to have that on record. Perfect. All right, so then we'll move on to 9.1 action items. So just remembering that protocol for action items includes staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. So we'll go ahead and move on to 9.2, which is the adoption of the 2021 budget.
I don't have anything else to add to the presentation unless the board has any more questions for me. We can go ahead and do a vote.
I move we adopt the budget.
Second?
Hang on, sorry, I'm moving slow here. So who moved? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay, sorry, Matt and Indira.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Behind there. Okay, and that is actually roll call vote as well. So, President Elkson, aye. Clerk Reed.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez Jones.
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Galindo. Mark, you all in?
Aye, yes, oh, sorry, yes.
Okay, awesome. So 9.3 COVID operations written report. Go to Aaron. Don't forget to unmute.
Got to get my report up. Hang on 1 second, please. So as I mentioned at the last board meeting, we of course are not submitting an LCAP until December. And so this is the state document that we will have to submit just to the county office. It's not actually submitted to the state. And so I'm submitting it for approval as I've written. Overall, I can say I'm pleased with our response to the pandemic on the part of all of our district staff. It was truly a team effort that caused everyone to react quickly, think outside the box, and again, be flexible. We've certainly learned a lot in the process, and I believe those lessons are going to help us as we begin to plan for the reopening of school. So Executive Order N5620 requires that we complete this written report to explain the changes that we had to make to our program offerings because we had our schools closed, and then how we address the major impacts of closures on our duplicate account students. So those are English learners, our students who are low income, and our foster students. So are there any questions about it?
No questions about the report. So then I'm just looking for a motion to go ahead and approve the COVID written report.
So moved.
Second?
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then moving on to 9.4, contract with Verizon Wireless. And that's to you, Maureen.
So we want to try and get some more mobile hotspots that will reach different areas that T-Mobile hotspots may not reach for our families. So we'd like to purchase about 20 more hotspots through Verizon. We did have to create an entirely new contract because this is under a government contract where we get a reduced rate. The monthly access fee for those mobile hotspots is going to be $10 a month, but we have received California Teleconnect funding, so it should only be about $5 a month. We get about 50% discount. That's only through September. We're hoping that the state decides to extend that California Teleconnect fund discount through the rest of the year due to the fact that we know we probably will have more distance learning going on. The other thing that the contract allows is normally it's $57 per device. We get a 50% reduction on the device as well, so that'll be cut in half. And then a private network does need to be set up between the district and Verizon. So NBN has already met with Verizon. They've already got everything in motion to get that private network set up. And it says there is an extra cost of $1,500. We don't have to do that because we have the proper equipment, but there will be an extra $250 charge just to set up the actual private network. All in all, it's probably a good way to go for the next at least 12 months. That's what I'd like to do is a 12-month contract. Again, $5 a month. You can't really ask for much better pricing than that on unlimited data. So I think we're pretty lucky in that area. And next month, I'll also be bringing back a contract with T-Mobile as well. So we have this contract with Verizon, and then we'll have T-Mobile's contract in addition.
So I just had a couple questions. So if we don't distance learn, let's just say we don't distance learn, would we still have those to use for families that have no Wi-Fi at home that can help the kids doing work at home?
If that is the decision we go with, yes.
And then is that renting the devices or are we buying the devices?
You buy them.
Anybody else questions? No? Okay, so just looking for a motion to go ahead and approve the contract with Verizon.
So move.
Second?
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then we move on to 9.5 Resolution 19-2012, governing board elections. Oh, that's me. So adoption of this resolution specifies the election order to fill 3 regular openings on the governing board in the next general election, which is November 3rd. That's for myself. Mark will be up, and Jeff will be up, right? No, Matt. Sorry, Matt. Matt, Mark, and I. Also, Paula will really keep on top of us and let us know when the filing period opens. Hopefully the Office of Elections will be back open. That happens sometimes in July. And then, of course, if there are community members interested in running for our board, we obviously want to support that and send them to whomever to talk to regarding that. And yeah, that's it. So we're just we need this as just a routine thing every election year to approve the governing board member elections. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I saw your lips move, Indira. All right, moving on to 9.6, Resolution 19/2013, affirming the district's commitment to equity. And that's Aaron.
So given the tragic death of George Floyd and the subsequent events in our country the past few weeks, I think it's important that even though we have policies in place, I think our district needs to reaffirm our commitment to the equity of all people. I'm certainly open to any suggestions you might have as far as the content of the resolution.
I feel the title affirming the district's commitment to equity. Equity in what? I feel it should be titled a little different. I feel there should be a mandate or a direction of the district, just to say that one would treat people with respect and dignity, I think is pretty vague. I think the district as a whole needs an audit that isn't on this resolution. I feel the intent is well placed. I just feel it needs some direction, it needs some help.
So Mark, you're welcome to give suggestions. You as a board, Mark, could make those suggestions and bring them back to the board for an August approval.
So did you want me to go line by line?
No. I think she means that we will do a little homework on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we'll bring it back to her, and then we can put a pin in this and move it to the August meeting. So we can, why don't we give ourselves a deadline, maybe July 15th, to get some feedback in? If anybody else has feedback regarding the resolution, they want to add anything, and then maybe we can work together and then bring something to the board for the August 10th meeting. Is that okay with you, Erin?
That's perfect. Yeah, everybody can forward their suggestions to me, and then I can compile them all and create another draft and bring it back in August.
Okay, so let's do that by July 15th. I think that gives us enough time. Is that good for you, Erin?
That's plenty, yeah.
All right, perfect. So we'll just go ahead and put that aside for now. Okay. Then moving on to 9.7, tentative agreement between the Calistoga Joint Unified School District and the Calistoga Associated Teachers. Michael?
Sure. So I'll say that our entire contract was open last year. So this year's work was more narrow in scope, and we lost a lot of days with school closure. So I commend the team for finalizing the negotiations. We worked on salary. We did settle at a 3% increase in compensation with a 1% increase in district contribution to health and welfare benefits, and a reduction in 1 day to the work year for staff. And then we also worked a little bit on evaluation and updating our evaluation procedure, making sure that we have the most current California standards for the teaching profession, and that those are reflected in our evaluation paperwork, and that those are the things that we're working closely with teachers on. And those were the main points of our negotiations this year.
Great. Good work to everybody. Did anybody have any questions about that? I think we're just all thrilled that we came to a great agreement this year. If nobody has any other questions, I'll look for a motion to go ahead and approve the tentative agreement with CAT.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. All right. And then that brings us to AB 1200 disclosure, California Associated Teachers. Go ahead, Maureen, take it away on that one.
This is a follow-up to the tentative agreement. This is the amount of cost in the agreement. And so this AB 1200 needs to be filed with the county. And they look it over, make sure our budget can sustain the increase in expenditure. If you can see at the bottom line, total compensation number 6, it's about a cost of $389,000. It's a total compensation of 5.46 because we do include step and column as compensation as it is. And so you can see up above there, the salary schedule number 1, that's a 3% over to the right. So that's what that cost was for 3%. And then health and welfare benefits is about a $75,000 cost, which is a little over 1%. Also, overall 4% increase over the contract as a whole with the health and welfare increase and the 3% salary schedule increase.
Great.
All of this is already in the budget in 1920 and 2021.
Good. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I just look for a motion to go ahead and approve AB 1200.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving next to AB 1200 disclosure for the CSEA. Same thing, I assume, Maureen?
This is the same thing. It's a total compensation increase of $120,656. Total compensation of 5.34% for the CSEA bargaining unit. 1% in health and welfare increase, and then the 3% salary schedule increase.
Great. Looking for a motion on AB 1200 for CSEA.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Thank you. 9.10 disclosure unrepresented units. So that's back to Maureen.
Yes, so these are our classified management, confidential, and certificated management employees. They too received a 3% on the salary schedule, along with a 1% increase across the board to their health and welfare. We also did a little bit of duty days reductions for the vice principal at the elementary, as well as the vice principal at the high school and the principal at the elementary. Classified management will also move to a positive work calendar. We will no longer accrue vacation, but we will do 225 duty days, which in essence is almost the same thing. It's just that from now on, we need to take those vacation days and we won't get paid out in future years. That will have a little bit of savings for the district. Overall salary increase cost is $14,539. Benefits $89.60 for a total. Oh, health insurance was also about $15.8. Total compensation cost increase for certificated classified management and confidential is $39,315.
Okay, great. Questions from anybody on that one? If not, then I'm just looking for a motion.
So moved.
All right, Jeff, thanks. That's
Second?
great, Indira. Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, thank you all. Okay, moving on to 9.11, certificated, classified, and unrepresented salary schedules, and that's Michael.
Yep, so we've just described the agreement to the change in compensation. And so that's what's represented on this new certificated salary schedule. We do have a unique or separate salary schedule for our counselor and our school psychologist program specialists. So you'll see them separately, but it's that same adjustment. With our Me Too procedure, you'll also see that same level of adjustment made to our classified, as well as administrator and management schedules. The data and assessment support specialist, which is a position that we approved the job description for at the last meeting, is a new range on the classified salary schedule. It's a rate that I believe is consistent with the complexity and the workload related to this position. Will also assist in recruiting of a high quality candidate for this important role. And just other adjustments to point out, and Maureen spoke to that a little bit, but I'll speak a little further. Looking at a regional comparison, we did see that some of our site administrators were working considerably more days than their peers in the region, and would have reduced the amount of work days to some of our site administrators. And the classified, as well as the Director of Food Services. And Maureen also spoke to the adjustment to a positive work year. And this going to a positive work year calendar creates a level of consistency between management across the district, and it also limits some of the financial liability as a district we pay out in vacation annually. So those are the major changes that you see on this year's salary schedules.
I wanted to clarify, this Me Too, as you call it, a procedure, it's just a recommendation. At any point, the district could decide not to allow the Me Too. It's just a recommendation. Is that correct?
You know, I do think that that is located, I do think that lives, actually, I think it lives in board policy. But we can look at that.
Please forward it to me, because I thought I read it correctly, where it is a recommendation.
I think it's I think that's a very fair question, and I will be happy to follow up as to where that language actually lives.
And let me clarify, I'm not saying that you guys don't deserve, the Me Too isn't valid. I'm just saying, like, if somebody came on 2 months ago to give them a 3% bump, it isn't justified. But I'm okay with everything that is. I just wanted the language clarified.
Yeah, I think
that's strictly a recommendation.
I think that's a salient point that deserves clarification. I will follow up offline.
So, Mark, the classified do have the Me Too in their current contract. So that is just specific to that unit. And the others are recommendations.
I would love to see that, please.
Thank you, Aaron. We can forward that portion of the CSEA contract.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions regarding that? If not, I'll just look for a motion to approve the certificated, classified, and unrepresented salary schedules.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Okay. Next up, 9.12. Revised certificated substitute salary schedule. Michael.
Yeah, we've added a half-day rate to our substitute salary schedule for our certificated substitutes. We've had some situations where a teacher would be out for a portion of the day, and we'd pay a sub for a full day. And when that happens, the site administrators determine how to utilize that sub for the remainder of the day. But it'd be much more efficient, and as we're mindful of our budget, I think it makes sense for us to have the half-day substitute rate on our schedule.
I agree. Great. Anybody questions on that? No? Okay, then just looking for a motion to go ahead and revise the substitute salary schedule.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks, Matt. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. 9.13, addendum to the superintendent's employment agreement.
Per section 2.b of the superintendent's employment agreement, the superintendent does receive a salary increase in the same percentage as the percentage increase provided to the district management employees, including directors and administrators. This is just a addendum to the superintendent's contract to show that fact. And total cost of the salary increase for 1920 will be $8,076.
Okay. But this is only 3%.
This is only 3%.
So I just want to clarify that. It's not taking the other percent.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just looking, any questions on that? So she's not taking the extra 1% that the others took for benefits. I'm just looking for a motion to do that then.
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Jeff beat you, Matt.
Okay.
You good? Mark? I don't think I heard aye.
Yeah, sure. How's that?
Perfect. All right. 9.14 designated of CIF representatives to League 2021. That's Aaron.
So the recommendation is to approve the representatives. However, CIF has not yet made any recommendations for schools on, what the school season is going to look like, but we do need to still approve the representatives in hopes that we will have a season, yet to come. And this is an annual approval.
So just looking for a motion to designate the CIF reps.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Make it quicker, Matt.
There has to be a delay on this. This is what's going on. There's a delay. Okay, everybody in favor?
Aye.
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 And then 9:15 board policies and administrative regulations. Aaron.
So these are the same board policies that I brought to you at last month's meeting. There were no changes suggested at the meeting. However, if you have any tonight, you could make them right now and approve those changes.
No changes from me.
Everybody's good? Then I'll just look for a motion to go ahead and approve our board policies and admin.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Mark. Second?
Second?
Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Thank you. Excellent. So we're moving on to 10.1 board meeting calendar. So we know our next board meeting is going to be August 10th. And did we decide we're doing an in-person meeting?
That's at the will of the board. That certainly is an option. We could hold it in the multipurpose room and follow all of our social distancing processes.
That was the will of the board? I misheard. Pardon me. Yes.
If that's the will of the board.
Okay.
Is everybody comfortable with that? I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with meeting. We have a big enough table where we're going to be wearing masks with microphones. Yeah. All right, then that's fine. And then we have got September 14th and Monday, October 5th. So everybody check their calendar. Make sure there's no problems with any of those dates. We're off on July. Woohoo! Happy Sunday. And there's no need to reconvene the closed session.
Hold on, I'd like to add a 10.2. I feel transparency still seems to be an issue here. I would like to be able to talk about this because there's a civil rights question, but yet we know what it is, but yet we don't have the report. These reports come out, we hear about them, but yet we don't see them. That's our job as a governing body to be aware of things. So I would like to be able to put a transparency and be able to put some mandates in our bylaws on this, because this is absurd. You know how little it is, but you don't know what it is? How do you know how little it is if you don't know what it is?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Mark.
I'm not
Our
sure
civil
either.
rights non-complaint, the little sentences that need to be changed.
There was no civil rights complaint made at all with the district.
Okay, then go back to whatever you said. You said civil rights something.
I said
Whatever.
there is civil rights language we need to include when we produce a document through the district through food service. And we were doing that on some documents, but not every single document.
Okay.
So we now
but-
need to go back and make sure that when we produce a document, it has that language in it.
Awesome. So I would like to talk about instances like that because I still have no idea what the instance is. Also, it took us, what, 8 months to get the special ed report to us, but yet that was already given to the district. How long did it take for us to get the Watts
This
report?
report
I
was
feel there needs
just-
to be mandate. I would like to add transparency policies for soon. And
This
coming
report
up.
was just completed last week. So we have only had, it's not actually even completed. We just found out what the corrective actions were. So we haven't received or finalized anything yet. And so it's only been a week. I need time to be able to go through it and make sure what our corrective actions are the correct corrective actions. And I need time to do that. And 1 week was not enough with everything else that was on the agenda tonight. So I will be glad to bring it back in August. I have no problem with transparency. That is a #1 issue with me, is being transparent. So you will have something in August.
Okay, Maureen, I appreciate that clarification on one of the examples that I brought up. So can we get some discussion on this? Because it still seems to be an issue.
Then, Mark, send me an email exactly what you want to discuss, and then we'll sit down with Aaron and see if there's an actual agenda item that we can put on.
In short, transparency, making sure a mandate that we get the reports that this district is paying for.
Okay, Mark,
Simple as that.
everybody else who wants to put something on the agenda, we always want you to just formulate it so we can make sure that we're doing it properly and that we're clear on what it is exactly that you want to discuss. So just shoot me an email with those examples and we will meet with Aaron and make sure that something that is well understood goes onto the agenda. Okay?
Just to clarify, I'm well within my right in section 10.2 to request this.
I'm not questioning whether or not you're in your right to request it. I'm just trying to get a process so we can understand exactly what it is that you want addressed so that we're clear. Okay?
Absolutely. Board policy mandating transparency, especially on all audits that are done at our district. All simple as that.
Okay, I'm going to write something up and I'll email it to you and you tell me if I have gotten my arms around what you're asking. How about that? Is that okay with you? Awesome. Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll do that. I'll take care of that from my end. And then if we formulate something that Mark feels is correct, then we'll bring it up to Aaron. Okay? Everybody's good then? Then I'm looking for the famous last motion.
I move we adjourn.
Thanks, Matt. Second?
Second?
All in favor?
All right.
Bye.
Great. Okay. That's a meeting.